vai no ka apuni o maui ke la vai ka o ai ka no ai ruku no ai ka ula na vai he ke mali o ai ka makani ili o nā mai kaulana ia o kupu ai ia I wale ka mana o ke iki wale I hanani I ka uka baby a mauna alani o ke ala o ino ana manu aoia uka o ohi
Alrighty, we're all set.
I ke ala a o paro ai pono o ka lani uwe ke ikea o hika mana I ka vai I vai kauna e ho ino o kauka kauka iu iu uel I lai ano e pili ai o ho ula ole e ho ino kauka kauka iu iu uel I lai ano e pili ai o ho ula ole oh nice places Maui Maui no ka oi a Bishop Museum no ka ai oh
Okay, so we're flying out over Hilo Bay right now. And we'll be heading kind of north-northwest up along the Hamakua coast area. This is going to be the southeastern and eastern flanks of Mauna Kea. Obviously a very, very different look to this side of Mauna Kea than the side of Mauna Kea that we saw as we made our way up through the saddle. This being the wet side of Mauna Kea. So we'll see all along the coast here, we'll see lots of streams. They've etched out little gorges. And those streams will tend to stair-step down from the higher ground, usually in a series of little waterfalls as they make their way down and empty into the ocean. This area north of Hilo in the Hamakua area is primarily agricultural. So we'll see some farms around here, sort of diversified agriculture. They grow tropical fruits, vegetables, coffee, flowers, macadamia nuts, and we'll also see some tree farms as we get a little bit farther along the Hamakua area. Mostly eucalyptus trees.
While the days slip by from my window, watching, and where were you when I was hurt and I was helpless?
You see some of those dark tarp covered areas. Those are going to be flower farms.
Things you say and the things you do.
Most likely, odds are, those will be orchids. I mean, they grow different types of flowers out here, but in and around Hilo, especially, they grow an awful lot of orchids. And it's one of the reasons why, in addition to the nickname the Big Island, this island also has acquired the nickname the Orchid Isle. Of course, the Big Island, that's the nickname. The official name of the island is Hawaii, but to avoid confusion between the state of Hawaii and the island of Hawaii, this island's much more commonly referred to as the Big Island, which is very appropriate, over 4,000 square miles in size. Took the other 7 islands of the state and you combine their land mass, it would not equal the land mass of the Big Island.
And lost in time, while the seeds of life and the seeds of change were planted outside, the rain fell dark and slow, while I pondered on this dangerous but irresistible pastime.
Now, most of the plants and animals that we see in Hawaii today are not truly native to these islands. The Hawaiian island chain is the most isolated island chain on Earth in terms of its distance from major land masses. For plant or animal life to make it out here on its own without assistance is very, very difficult because of the great distances involved. Prior to the Polynesians coming here, and then subsequent people also coming here bringing different plants and animals, there really wasn't a tremendous diversity. Scientists estimate that a new species of plant or animal was introduced naturally here about once every 35,000 years on average. Of all the mammals that we see today in Hawaii, only 2 are truly native. That would be the Hawaiian monk seal and the Hawaiian bat. Any other mammal that we find not truly native to these islands, brought here either by the early Polynesian settlers or by subsequent groups of immigrants. There are an awful lot of endangered species in the Hawaiian Islands. The plants and animals that were here originally, that they really weren't. Well, what am I trying to say here? Endemic species, species that are unique just to these islands, don't tend to do well when you have alien species arrive. Alien species tend to be a little bit more aggressive types of plants or animals. Endemic species here, when they're pretty much easily overtaken because they haven't developed any sort of way to counteract some of these other alien species that have been brought here to the islands. And so there's a tremendous amount of endangered species here. And the islands have only really been populated in fairly recent history as well, again, because of their isolation. Nobody lived here until about 300 AD. That's when the first settlers arrived, and these were seafaring Polynesians from the Marquesas Islands. This was during about a 1,000-year period of widespread Polynesian migration and settlement of many of the islands of the Pacific. Those Polynesians from the Marquesas crossed about 2,500 miles of open ocean in dual-hulled canoes to discover and then begin settling these islands. So the Polynesians of this time were very highly skilled open ocean sailors and navigators. These dual-hulled canoes, the hulls could be as long as 150 feet in length. They'd be connected by a platform on which somewhere between 50 and 100 people would travel. They also brought with them plants and animals. Plants to cultivate, animals to breed for food sources when they arrived at a new island. Those early Marquesan Polynesians who came here, they brought pigs, dogs, and chickens, and the plants that they brought included bananas, sweet potatoes, breadfruit, and the taro plant. Taro being the main ingredient in poi. Any of you guys tried poi? What'd you think? Anybody want to claim that they loved poi? Nope, okay. Poi is very, very nutritious, but kind of bland. Heard a little joke about that, people who claim that they love poi are either Hawaiian or they're lying. But again, very, very nutritious, very healthy, just what a young, growing Hawaiian needs. And those Polynesians, they navigated by reference to the stars, the sun, the moon, observing, tides, winds, and also observing flight paths of migratory birds. Then several hundred years later, there was another period of settlement here when Polynesians from the Tahitian Islands arrived. This was about 1000 AD. Those Tahitian Polynesians were more aggressive, more dominant, more warlike, and in fairly short order, the Tahitian Polynesians had subjugated, supplanted the earlier settlers, and it was the Tahitian Polynesians that created and established the Hawaiian society that was in place when Westerners first discovered these islands in the late 1700s. So in the old Hawaiian society, the Hawaiian rulers, they were known as the Ali'i. They were the chiefs. The ruler of an island, the big chief, he was the Ali'i Nui. The island was divided up into smaller sections. Each section was ruled by one of those subordinate Ali'i, and then the subordinate Ali'i answered to the Ali'i Nui. Each of these sections, there was usually pie wedge-shaped sections that would try to fairly equally distribute the natural resources of the island. So each section of the island might have a mountainous section where you got a good source of fresh water from rainfall, a forest section to provide wood and lumber, an agricultural section that was a little bit lower on the slopes that was good for cultivation and agriculture, and then a coastal section for the Hawaiians to live. The Hawaiians believed that everything from the water to the land to the plants, animals, and the Hawaiian people themselves had spiritual power or life force. They referred to this as mana. Mana came through your genealogy. Those who could trace their genealogy back far to the gods and the demigods and the spirits, they had the most mana. So these were usually your Ali'i, your higher class Hawaiians. The Ali'i Nui had the most mana, and it was his ultimate responsibility to sort of serve as the liaison between the gods and spirits and the Hawaiian people. The Hawaiians believed that if the gods and spirits became angered with them, then they would punish the Hawaiians in the form of disasters such as lava flows, tsunamis, droughts, things of this nature. So to try to maintain that balance between the people and the gods and spirits, they created a pretty elaborate and strict set of rules that was known as the kapu system, kapu being the Hawaiian word for forbidden or sacred. Violations of kapu were dealt with pretty strictly and pretty harshly. Violators of kapu oftentimes were put to death by human sacrifice. Human sacrifice was a practice that was brought by the Tahitians when they started to arrive here in the 11th and 12th century. If the violation of kapu was serious enough, not only the violator, but that person's whole family might be put to death by human sacrifice. So they took the kapu system very seriously. They really didn't want to anger the gods and spirits, risk their wrath. Then below the Ali'i, you had another class of people. They were known as the kahuna. The kahuna were like priests, wise men, master craftsmen, keepers of knowledge. The kahuna would perform religious rituals in Hawaiian temples known as heiau. There were different types of heiau. Some were for agricultural or fertility purposes, some for medicinal or healing purposes, some for warfare, some for peace and prosperity. Most of these heiau, only the kahuna were allowed to enter. The kahuna also assisted with enforcing the kapu system, and the kahuna were the keepers of the Hawaiian histories. The Hawaiians didn't have a written language, and so histories were kept orally through long and elaborate chants that could take multiple days to recite. Then the vast majority of the Hawaiians fell into the commoner class. They were known as the Maka'ainana, or the eyes of the land. These were your farmers, your warriors, fishermen, canoe builders. Then there was a small class of slaves. mostly made up of enemy warriors who'd been taken alive in battle and their descendants. Hawaiians believe that if you were taken alive in battle, you lost your mana, you lost your spiritual power. So these enemy soldiers taken alive oftentimes were relegated to this small slave class. So that was the basic Hawaiian societal structure in place when the first Western discovery was made of these islands, and it wasn't until 1778 that the Western world even realized these islands were here. The discovery was made by Captain Cook in 1778, sailing for the Royal British Navy on a journey of discovery out here in the Pacific. Came across these islands, landed first on Kauai, and then later on that same journey here on the Big Island, over on the other side at Kealakekua Bay, just south of Kona. And of course, Hawaiian society began to change and evolve very rapidly after Western discovery, and Westerners began to come in greater frequency and greater numbers in the early to mid 1800s.
Hear the jimbo jambo on the ocean floor. Use your surfboard to walk.
Everybody doing okay? Feeling good? All right.
See the ipa dancing on the reef.
Now up ahead in the distance, we can start to see where we transition from the Hamakua coast to the Kohala coast. You can see some taller cliffs up ahead. That's where the Kohala coastline begins. Both rugged coastlines that we see Hamakua here, 200 to 300 foot cliffs. But up ahead, that portion of the Kohala coast is going to be more like 1,500 foot cliffs on average. The reason for the pronounced difference, if you recall, Kohala is the oldest volcano here on the Big Island. And where we see the coastline today used to be, a long time ago, the location of one of those cracks, one of those volcanic rifts in the layers of volcanic rock of Kohala. So at some point a long time ago, there was some sort of an earthquake or a massive landslide, and all the earth on the ocean side of that rift of Kohala gave away, collapsing into the water, creating the coastline that we see today, those much taller cliffs.
All day long, let's surf the fun and sing along. It's a surf-a-ina.
Now Kohala is the homeland of the most famous of all the Ali'i Nui, Kamehameha the Great. Kamehameha was the Ali'i Nui from the Big Island who conquered the other Hawaiian islands and united them into the Kingdom of Hawaii in 1810. Another interesting thing about Kamehameha, after he passed away, well, let me back up. If you've driven it all along the Kona coast, you probably noticed you were driving on Queen Ka'ahumanu Highway. Well, Ka'ahumanu was Kamehameha's favorite wife. He had 21 of them. They say that she was very beautiful, very regal, very smart, intelligent, ambitious, a very good match for Kamehameha. And after Kamehameha passed away in 1819, she became the co-ruler of the Hawaiian Kingdom along with one of Kamehameha's sons.
Let's surf the fun and sing along. It's a surf-a-ina all day.
We got the town of Honoka'a at our left side, left front. That's the last major town before we get to the southernmost valley of Kohala, which will be Waipio Valley. Now, of all the valleys of Kohala, only one valley is presently occupied by people, and that's going to be Waipio Valley. For many, many generations of Hawaiians, thousands of Hawaiians used to live in Waipio Valley, but it pretty much got cleared out by the April Fool's Day tsunami in 1946, which battered this side of the island, destroyed everything in Waipio Valley, and Waipio Valley lay empty for a couple decades before people started to trickle back in the 60s and 70s. Today you've got about 50 or so people who live in Waipio Valley. They're mostly taro farmers. These are people kind of living off the grid. There's no real modern conveniences back there. There's no electricity, no sewage, no phone lines. So the people living in there, they're looking to kind of get away from it all. They're making a definite lifestyle decision living in Waipio Valley. As we get around the point up ahead, we'll see Waipio Valley. We won't fly into the Waipio Valley. We'll do a little left and right hand turn off the valley as we look down in there. Give both sides of the aircraft an opportunity to look down into Waipio Valley. We'll see a nice black sand beach down there at the valley entrance. And along the left valley wall, in a little notch, there's a pretty good waterfall called Hi'ilave Falls. It's about a 1,400-foot waterfall. And then from Waipio Valley, we'll continue on down to the next valley, which is Waimanu Valley. And we will fly back into Waimanu Valley. Check out some of the waterfalls up close and personal in Waimanu Valley. Now the road that you see on the high ground here is going to bring us to the southern valley wall of Waipio, and then we'll see it's going to go very, very steeply down the inside valley wall. It's about a 25-degree down angle road, one lane, with a few little points along the road for pulling aside to make way for someone going up or down. Pretty sketchy. You would not want to lose your concentration on this road. Takes you down to the valley floor, and that's where the road ends. Roads don't, these series of valleys are so rugged, there's no road connecting any of them together. The road doesn't pick up again until you get all the way up past the northernmost valley of Kohala, Pololu Valley. Little white lighthouse you see down there on the point down there, that's called Kukui Haele Lighthouse. Kukui is the Hawaiian word for light. The Hawaiians use the oil from the kukui nut for their torches. And then Haele means house, so Kukui Haele Lighthouse literally translates to lighthouse, lighthouse. Okay, so here we see Waipio Valley ahead of us. As I mentioned, we'll cruise past it on the left initially, then we'll come back and we'll put it out the right-hand side as well.